Hey everybody, I'm here with Brian Cartee with New Story Lending, and everybody saw the news this week that the Fed did lower interest, the prime, excuse me. And everybody, when this happens, is thinking about is that going to affect the mortgage rates? How does that work? How do they relate together? So I've invited him to speak to that today. So thank you for being here, Brian.
You're very welcome. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so help us out and understand how what happened earlier this week is going to affect the market and the interest rates.
Absolutely. Well, the biggest misconception that I'm seeing out there is that since the Feds took a quarter of a basis point reduction this week, people think that that directly correlates to the mortgage rates going down by a quarter of a percent, which it doesn't mean that. Keep in mind, the Fed rate that was reduced is the actual rate that banks sell and transfer money back and forth to each other in. The best way to kind of determine where we're headed as far as interest rates go is to follow that 10-year treasury yield. And to give you an idea, today the treasury yield on 10-year is at 4.127, which is actually up 0.023% from where it was at the beginning of the month. So despite what you're hearing and seeing with that quarter point reduction, the 10-year is actually up, which means that rates are actually trending back up again as we speak. Most lenders have already taken into account the quarter rate reduction that came in from the feds earlier this week into this month's already pricing. So it does not mean that just because the feds and Jerome lowered it a quarter of a point that mortgage interest rates automatically went down a quarter of a point this week as well.
Okay. Okay. So is that a trailing thing, or you said that they've already
It's
adjusted the interest rate? Do they project? I mean, how do they
That is what
relate?
it is. They projected, the banks projected, Fannie and Freddie and HUD, everybody kind of projected that we knew this quarter of a basis point reduction was coming in. What we're seeing is that they're projecting at least another two reductions by the end of the year. One of those reductions is supposedly looking like a half a point reduction. Now, when they start billing that into the actual mortgage rates, will be up to the big banks, Fannie, Freddie, and all them as to when they decide to go ahead and start reducing that out.
Okay. So that's kind of just something that they decide based on
It's
what
a
they're
good
seeing.
sign. It's a very, very good sign. Anytime that we can get that Fed rate down, it will eventually correlate into mortgage rates trending down as well, which
Okay.
we're seeing some really good rates right now. I mean, anytime you can keep it, in that 4 to below 4.5% on the 10-year yield, you're going to see better rates than what we have had for the previous 12 months.
So for somebody that doesn't know what you mean when you say 10-year yield, what is that? And where
That
do
is
they
the
find
tr-
that information?
That's a treasury yield. The easiest way for me to tell somebody to find that is to go to, cnbc.com
Hmm.
and or just type in 10-year treasury yield. And the good thing about it is it'll give you a 1 day, a 5 day, a 1 month, all the way up to a 5 year analysis and show you the graphs and everything of how it's trending up and trending down. And when you compare where we're at now to where we were over the year, we are still doing better than we were. We're actually where we need to be. We're lower than we have been since April of this year. So that's
Okay.
really good. And we're
Okay.
trending down again. Like I said, we should still have two more reductions, but we'll have to see what they do.
Okay. So right now
Mhm.
rates are around
Mid sixes.
mid sixes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All
Mid
right.
sixes. Now we have seen some really lower rates, such as your state housing rates. I can tell you that today, one of the state housing rates was at 4.875, which is just phenomenal.
Mhm.
So, make sure you're checking different loan programs because conventional rates are going to be different than FHA rates. USDA rates and VA rates have been really good this week, but the state of South Carolina rates are absolutely just crushing everybody. That's either with their down payment assistance or without their down payment assistance. They have the lowest rates in the market right now.
Okay. So what you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing coming up then is possibly they're projecting two more rate cuts, I think is what um
Mm-hmm.
you're saying it, two more rate cuts sometime this year, and so that's possible that we would see even more of a reduction in the interest rates as we get closer to those. Am I hearing you
Correct.
right?
Correct. And that's what we've been seeing. Our projections from, like I said, from Fannie and Freddie and HUD are is
Mm.
that we should see at least one, if not two more reductions by the end of the year, which in that Fed rate reduction will eventually equal itself out to mortgage rates as well.
Okay. Let's say that I'm buying then, or I'm wanting to buy. Um, am I better served to just jump on something right now if the need is there, or wait
I mean,
what somebody that's just sitting there on the fence and saying, "Hey, maybe I should just wait until those rate cuts happen, and we can see those drop."
and that's a good question because I mean, but at the end of the day, the way to look at it is nothing is for certain. Yeah,
Mm.
we've been 24 months waiting on Powell to do any type of reduction. He's waiting till the very end of close to the end of this year to do it. So what I would tell people is if you're in the market to buy, go ahead and buy. You can always refinance at any point in time when those rates drop. And if you're under contract to buy and your rate is already locked, most lenders will offer a float down option, which is, say we lock you in at 6% today, and then a week before closing rates drop down significantly, the lender can then float the buyer down to that lower rate.
Oh,
And
nice.
and that's a real good option. But I mean, waiting is not going to solve anything because I mean, there are people out there that have been waiting for the last 24 months and they're still sitting there. So,
Mm.
what I would tell everybody, this is as good a time to buy as we've had in the last 24 months. And there's no way for us to predict what Jerome and the Feds are going to do going forward. So, at the end of the day, go ahead and buy and just refinance when rates do drop. Or if you're locked in at a 7.5% interest rate and you've been that way for the last year or 6 months, now is still a good time to refinance. You can refinance as often as needed.
Yeah, and the other side of that, from the real estate side of things, the fact of the market is that there are just more houses available right now than we've seen, in a long time. Fewer pendings, just because of the way the interest rates have been for several years now. This year, the pendings in Anderson have been trending down, as far as, compared to the previous month, and also um, inventory because of that. Inventory is creeping up, and so there are more options out there. And because sellers are sitting on the market for longer, their houses are sitting on the market for longer. Now is a great time from that perspective to buy, that you could actually get, maybe negotiate a little bit better deal, or have more options right now. So
And what I would
that's
tell buyers is the flip side of that coin is if you do decide to wait, keep in mind that there's another 150,000 people in the upstate that are feeling the exact same way. So you can buy now with a little bit higher of an interest rate and refinance, or you can wait until there's blood in the water and it's just a
hmm
feeding frenzy, and then
that's
you
right.
you very well at that point in time could end up overpaying for a house.
hmm
So you
That's
you
right.
got to pick and choose your battles there, and I think it's easier. It's always easier to refinance a mortgage that you've already closed on
hmm
to a lower interest rate than it is to get out there and compete with 5, 6, 7 offers and end up paying more than what you were comfortable paying in the beginning. And now you've got more invested in it that the interest rate wouldn't have saved you any money.
Yeah. The more I'm in this business, and I'm curious if you agree with me, the more I think that making a decision just based on interest rates. I know that, let me give the caveat. I know that they've been significantly higher the last few years than they were in 2021, 22, and all 2020, all those things. But at the same time, making a decision solely based on interest rate is never the best decision, because you never know what's going to happen. And if it's the time that you need to make a move to either get a larger house or a smaller house, or you have to move because of your job, then hey, make that decision and we can make the interest rate work.
And I mean, realistically, during COVID and during those years when it was just the Wild West out there, interest rates were in the twos and threes. I don't know that we will see that again in our lifetimes. I don't know that my children will see that in their lifetime, just to be realistic. I would
Sure.
love to tell you that, interest rates are going to hit twos and threes again, but I just don't. It would take a very serious economic crisis for us, and the stock market would have to absolutely plummet. And at that point in time, you're robbing from Paul to pay Peter for us to see rates get back down into those twos and threes. So waiting for that perfect opportunity, that perfect interest rate. I mean, you could be waiting for the next 4 or 5 years, and a rental payment is always going to be, less pleasant than a mortgage payment, even with a higher interest rate than what you would like.
Yep. Yep. You don't wait to buy real estate, you buy real estate and wait. Start building
There you
up that
go.
equity.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, hey man, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. And where can we find you?
Absolutely.
Where can people find you if they need to get in contact with you to get some help?
Still at New Story Lending. It's Brian.Cartee at newstorylending.com, or you can catch me on Facebook or anywhere. I'm all over social media. I'm not hard to find, my friends. So
Yeah,
anybody
you want
needs
to
my
check
help,
out the social media. Look at his AI generated content.
I
It's
love it. I love it. Seven
insane.
days a week, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. I hope that was a help to you. And if I can be a help to you in any way, please let me know. Mark J. Martin at KW.com. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.